Aljo is in a very interesting spot. Boy, it's a good one. Boy, it's a good one. I mean, what a difference a day can make. Do you guys remember, and you won't, by the way, like, don't think you have to look it up. It's rhetorical to prove a point. Do you remember Khabib's fight that made him the number one contender? Do you remember the fight that Khabib had at T-Mobile Arena when he walked out back, refused to get on the bus, and set his hat on Dana White's car, waiting for Dana? Do you remember that? Do you remember the match that Khabib had that drew him, finally and officially, into what went down as the largest pay-per-view in sports history? No, you don't. That's okay. But what a difference a day makes. You at all times are one win away from, fill in the blank, from having a sponsor's attention, from captivating the audience. I mean, we had one fight, so the story goes, that saved our entire industry. And of course, I'm talking about Forrest and Bonner, rest his soul, part one. I mean, you're just one match away at all times. And I have to bring that to you because the match that Khabib had that drew him into the title fight with Conor, just for example, it wasn't a main event. I don't remember it either. I don't know who the opponent was. I remember that. Now I remember what Khabib was wearing. I remember the black car that he went out and put the thing, took the picture, put it all over history. I remember a lot about that night. I don't know who the opponent was. I'm telling you it's not a main event, but I can't actually remember. But I'm sure it's not, or I would know. I mean, do you understand the difference? Khabib goes from he can't get a main event. He wasn't any better. That fight didn't do anything for him. They didn't want to give him the fight. They wanted to give him the fight because they didn't think people cared about him. They were right. It was the wrong guy to give the match to. They had to do it. Eventually, you have to do it. You have to follow the integrity of the sport. He goes out and does it. Guess what happens? Wins that fight, sets a pay-per-view record, and 2 matches later, they built an arena for him. I've had big dreams in my life, and I'm sure you guys can relate. Have you ever even dreamed that somebody would build you an arena? Imagine you told that to somebody. I used to have teachers on the first day, they'd ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? They used to ask, well, what would the teacher done? And how would have your classmates responded? If you said, well, someday I'd like a country to use their tax-paying dollars to build me an arena so I can compete in it one time. What are you talking about? That's insane. That isn't going to happen. Why would you write that down? That's insane. They did it for Khabib. Right? They did it for a guy who wasn't a huge deal until he was. And I bring that with you because why? What was different about the night that he beat Conor? It was the difference than the night he jumped out and attacked Dylan Dennis and had the governor's personal security rush him out the back. Man, what was different? In this sport, unlike so many others, okay? So many others, they don't follow this. It is such high stakes for one specific reason. Whatever you have is on the line. It can be discussed or it cannot be discussed. It doesn't have to be. There's a standard of our industry. Whatever you got, you're all in. And that's not the way that it works. I wish it did. In all fairness, I wish that it did. When I watched the Patriots win the Super Bowl, there was a time they called them the Pats. Did you know that? Pat? What a stupid name. They call them the Pats. They won 3 in a row. They won 3 in a row, and I had to cheer for them because Stephen Neal was on their team. So I had to cheer for Stephen Neal. But I never went around calling them the Pats. Anyway, the next game they play, it should be on the line, in my opinion. I don't understand how you can call yourself the world champion. I don't understand how you can call yourself 2-time world champion. I don't know how you can call yourself a 3-time world champion, go out and lose a game, and later that day call yourself the world champion. I don't know how that works, but I know it does. I know they said that Tiger was the best, and then Tiger comes in 18th. Well, it sounds like 17 other people are world champions, but it doesn't work that way. Only our sport does. If you have a title, anytime you fight, not one specific night, not one specific moment, anytime it's on the line. You might not be fighting the number 1 guy. You might be fighting the number 8 guy who hasn't even earned the opportunity. But if you give him the opportunity, it's his. And so's your belt should he take it. If you are undefeated, he will take that from you. There's been guys that that had the jersey chasing girlfriend, and the other guy took him. You ever heard about Arlovsky and Tim Sylvian? I can't remember quite how that worked, but there was something there. I'm not joking about it. It's all on the line. This is the way our sport works. So when Conor rolled into town, I apologize, Khabib rolled into town, he didn't just take this rivalry from Conor and take a whole bunch of money and take some records. He took a whole bunch of fans too. It's all on the line. They say that Conor's the sport's biggest star. That's true, but they never built an arena for him. They built an arena for Khabib. That's massive. It's a really big deal, and I hope that you understand that point. And do you want to know why? Because I want you to take what I just told you, and I want you to tell me how you would apply it to Aljo, who had never been a main event. John Anik brought this to our attention. The day before the fight, John Anik was alone in his hotel room, and he was writing the run of show. And it dawned on him, my goodness, this guy's never fought. The world champion who's defended it multiple times, who won it years ago, who came back and re-won it or defended it, or however that was, right? It felt like he was winning a second time against Jon, but I guess that wasn't quite right. It was a defense. But you understand my point. Never been in a main event? That was a really interesting fact. And it's one that I bring you guys all the time about Shevchenko. And everybody tell what a jerk I am when you're being mean to Shevchenko. I'm not trying to be. She's awesome. And you guys find her dull. And Sterling had that same problem. Khabib had the same problem. He couldn't even get a main event, let alone a top fight. Now they're building arenas for him. Sterling fought in what they're calling his backyard. I can't relate to that. I'm assuming this is a West Coast, East Coast thing. I'm from Oregon. If I go into Washington, we don't call it my backyard. That's a different state. On the East Coast, it's a little bit more incestuous, apparently. You got a New Yorker that fought in New Jersey. They're calling his backyard. Okay, fine. He fought in his own backyard. But they booed the decision. And Dana commented on that. Dana just said, I've never had a guy booed in his own backyard, you know, and he almost was praising the crowd like they were a really fair and honest crowd. I can live with that. I was in Houston when Tiavasa beat Derek Lewis and got all of Houston, who was mad at him. They were pissed off. They stood with the beast. But he got all of them to stand up and do a shoey with him. Right? Like that rocky moment of getting the Russians to chant USA. There is little focus groups where something close like that happens, and it's kind of neat. I only say that because it's not an insult to Aljo. Aljo's in an interesting spot. Aljo just beat Henry. So what all did he take? And before you answer that, you have to know what Henry had. Because it was on the line. And one thing that Henry had, he demanded it and he would not back off, is he was the bad guy of the division. Whatever you are willing to do, he will do more. If you go after his mom, he will come after your sister. Whatever you do, you push him, he will punch you. You punch him, he will kick you. You kick him, he will stab you. You stab him, he'll shoot you. You shoot him, he'll go kill your family. Like, whatever Henry has to do to make sure he stays in front as the bad guy, he did. So he brought that market. But if Henry retires and Aljo beat him, Aljo has a chance to take that market. But that market is expecting something. They are expecting a brashness. They are expecting an unapologetic anti-hero. And there is one out there. His name is Sean O'Malley. So if Henry's going to step away, and it looks like, look, he's called out Merab, looks like he's not going to do that. But I want to share the point anyway. Whatever Henry had is on the line. That's the way this game is played. Henry had an entire audience that was captivated and entertained because they expected something. But what they expected is something that Sterling has if he wants to do it. And Sterling is the perfect bad guy. And you want to know why? You want to know the number one reason he's a perfect bad guy? Because he's not. The same reason Henry was. The reason Henry was so great is because people knew he wasn't the bad guy. The reason he was so great at being an agitator and playing a jerk is because people knew he wasn't. And it was very different. It was very different. Here, I'll give you a different example. My guy, Colby. Colby came in so hard before he showed the audience somebody else that the audience isn't sure if he really is or he's not. Like, they're not sure. And it just takes a little bit of time. It's different. Aljo's in a really interesting spot. And I think Aljo would like to play it. I think he does have the charisma. I think he is a box office draw. I think Aljo has what Simon Cowell calls the it factor. I've heard Dana use that term. I think he got it from Simon, but we still understand it, don't we? He's got the skills, for sure. He's got the gas tank, for sure. People like him. The guy they would give a title shot to is his friend, and there's so much loyalty to the friendship, he's passing on it. That's how much people like this guy. And if you can be liked and loved in a real small focus group, just your team, just 5, 6, 8 guys, but they really like you, of course you could do it with 18 guys. So you could do it then with 80 guys, and then 800 and 8,000 and 80,000, 800. I mean, right? It's just the way that it works. You back all of those things down. People that know Aljo like him. They find him charismatic. They find him fun. They find him really good. They find him to be an honest person. He has all of the qualities that he needs to be an entertainer. He just hasn't chosen what direction he's going to go. The maddest I've ever seen him, I know him personally, damn near a decade. The maddest I've ever seen him was caught on film just before, just after a weigh-in. Somebody had a camera going. There was no one even around. Aljo was like having this thought to the air. And he said, accolades don't mean SHI asterisks. I am going to take that Olympic gold medal and I'm going to shove it up his ass. I promise you that. Whoa. I'd never seen him like this. I never saw him go heel. And I loved it. And there's a whole market out there. And the way this game is played is whatever you bring is on the line. Aljo has the ability now to take those fans if he wants it. And I'm personally interested how he's going to play this.